It was a bright Saturday morning, the kind where sunlight spilled lazily across the living room, and the hum of a quiet household felt almost peaceful. My son Noah was curled up on the couch, his small fingers dancing across the tablet screen, completely absorbed in his favorite game. The way his face lit up with each achievement made my heart swell. I could see the pride and excitement in his eyes. I sat nearby, sipping my coffee, feeling a rare moment of calm, a fleeting pause in the chaos of our lives. Then she appeared, my sister, Marissa, striding in with that smirk that always made me uneasy, her eyes gleaming with mischief I had learned to fear. "What's he doing?" she asked, feigning curiosity. I gave her a neutral smile, hoping to avoid conflict. "Playing a new game he got yesterday." But the moment she stepped closer, I felt it, that familiar surge of dread. She leaned over Noah, and before I could react, she swiped her hand through the air and tipped the tablet straight into his glass of water. Time seemed to slow. The tablet sank with a small gurgle, bubbles rising like tiny betrayals, and Noah's face crumpled instantly. "Nuo," he shrieked, reaching desperately for it, but it was gone. My heart lurched. I could hardly breathe as I knelt beside him, pulling him into my arms. His tears were hot and uncontrollable, his small body trembling as he looked up at me with confusion and heartbreak. I turned to Marissa, ready to lash out, but then I saw it, everyone else laughing. My father, seated in his armchair, chuckled in a way that made my chest tighten with disbelief. Marissa's friends, or cousins, I wasn't sure were all doubling over, pointing and teasing as if this were some hilarious spectacle. The sound of their laughter felt like knives slicing through the warmth I had just felt with Noah. "Come on, it's just a tablet," my father said lightly, waving his hand as if that explained everything. My voice trembled with fury as I tried to explain, tried to make him understand the small tragedy that had unfolded. A toy wasn't just a toy to a 7-year-old, it was his world, his little escape. But no one listened. Marissa's smirk widened triumphant. The betrayal wasn't just in her action. It was in the laughter that followed, in the acceptance of her cruelty as something harmless, even funny. And I felt it, deep in my chest, the raw, burning awareness that this was more than just a ruined tablet. This was a fracture in our family, one I couldn't ignore, one I couldn't forgive so easily. And in that moment, as Noah clung to me, sobbing, I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. I would make her pay. Not in anger, not in words, but in a way she would never see coming. The laughter didn't fade quickly. It lingered in the room like smoke after a fire, choking and suffocating. I carried Noah to the guest bedroom, closing the door behind us as his sobs softened into hiccups. I dried his tears with my sleeve, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep, that I'd fix it, that everything would be okay. He nodded, trusting me the way only a child can, and that trust cut deeper than any insult. When I returned to the living room, the mood had barely changed. Marissa was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone, still smiling like she'd won something. My father hadn't moved from his chair. The others had gone quiet, but no one looked ashamed. "You didn't have to do that," I said, my voice low but shaking. "He's a child, that tablet was his birthday gift." Marissa shrugged without even looking up. "Relax, kids cry over everything. He'll forget it in a day." I looked to my father then, desperate for him to say something, anything. He was supposed to be the one who drew lines, who taught us right from wrong. Instead, he sighed like I was the problem. "You're overreacting," he said. "It's just material stuff. You're raising him too soft." Those words hit harder than the laughter. Too soft, as if compassion were a weakness, as if cruelty were something to be tolerated, excused, normalized. I felt something shift inside me then. Not an explosion, no shouting, no tears, just a cold, heavy stillness settling into my chest. I realized I was alone in that room, not just physically, but emotionally. My pain, my son's pain, meant nothing to them. I tried one last time. She humiliated him, she hurt him, and you laughed. My father's eyes flickered for half a second. Something unreadable passed through them, but then it was gone. "Enough," he said firmly. "Drop it." So I did. Not because I agreed, but because I understood something important. Speaking would get me nowhere. Silence, I realized, was the only weapon I had left. That night, as Noah slept curled against me, I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. Marissa's smirk, the laughter, my father's dismissal. They thought the story was over, that the tablet was the end of it. But they were wrong, because betrayal doesn't end when the noise stops. It settles in, it grows roots. And in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, it teaches you patience. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg, I was going to remember, and when the time came, they would too. The days that followed were deceptively calm. Marissa went about her life as if nothing had happened, and the rest of the family seemed content to let it slide. But beneath that fragile surface, a storm was gathering inside me. A storm fueled by betrayal, anger, and the need for justice. I couldn't confront her head on. That would be too obvious, too reckless. No, if I wanted real satisfaction, I had to be clever. I began watching her closely, noting the small things, how she bragged about her social media followers, how easily flustered she became when caught in a lie, how she loved attention and approval. More than anything else, those were the cracks I would exploit. Revenge, I realized, wasn't about anger. It was about precision. Every action had to be deliberate, calculated, and inevitable. But as I made my plans, a nagging thought unsettled me, my father. He hadn't defended Noah, and his laughter still echoed in my memory. Was he truly indifferent, or was he secretly aligned with her cruelty? Every glance he cast in her direction, every quiet nod, seemed to hint at a conspiracy I couldn't yet prove. That uncertainty made my task more dangerous and more thrilling. I started small. I let Marissa think she had won every minor victory, borrowing my things without asking, teasing Noah under my watchful eye, flaunting her arrogance. Each time I stayed calm, hiding the simmering anger behind a neutral expression. To her, it looked like weakness. To me, it was strategy. I was planting seeds, letting her confidence grow until it became overconfidence. Then came the moments of testing. I orchestrated subtle situations designed to unsettle her, leaving her phone in a lost location, hinting that others were talking behind her back, letting her small lies unravel in front of people she valued. I watched from the shadows as unease flickered across her face, tiny cracks appearing in the armor of superiority she always wore. It was intoxicating seeing the same unease she had inflicted on Noah reflected back at her, in miniature. And all the while, I reminded myself that this wasn't about hatred. It was about justice, about teaching her a lesson she couldn't ignore. I wasn't planning to destroy her life, but I would make her feel the weight of her actions in a way that words alone could never convey. Night after night, I mapped out every scenario, every reaction, every possible outcome. My heart raced with anticipation, not fear. I knew the moment of truth was coming, when patience, timing, and strategy would collide. And when it did, Marissa would finally understand the meaning of betrayal. Because revenge, I realized, was most powerful when it arrived quietly, suddenly, and without warning. And I intended for her to remember this lesson forever. The moment came quietly, just as I knew it would. It wasn't dramatic or loud, no shouting, no chaos. It was subtle, precise, and impossible to undo. We were gathered again, family and relatives filling the house for my father's birthday. Marissa was in her element, laughing too loudly, telling stories, basking in attention. She thrived in rooms like this. She believed she owned them, and for the first time since the incident, I felt ready. I waited. When the conversation drifted to childhood memories, I spoke calmly, my voice steady. "Do you remember Noah's tablet?" I asked lightly, as if recalling something trivial. Marissa stiffened. My father's smile faltered. I continued before anyone could interrupt. "The one you drowned in water while everyone laughed." The room went quiet. Not the awkward kind, the heavy kind. All eyes turned to Marissa. She forced a laugh. "Oh my God, it was a joke." I nodded. "That's what I thought too, until Noah stopped asking to bring his things around you. Until he flinched whenever you walked into a room." Her smile cracked. "I didn't yell. I went on. I didn't punish you. I just let people see you the way my son did that day." Someone shifted uncomfortably. Another relative frowned. Then my father spoke, but not the way I expected. That wasn't funny, he said quietly. Marissa spun toward him. You laughed. I laughed because I didn't want to deal with it, he admitted. And that was wrong. The words hit her harder than any accusation I could have made. For the first time, she had no shield. No audience cheering her on. I wasn't finished. I replaced Noah's tablet, I said, meeting her eyes. But I didn't replace his trust. That's on you. Silence swallowed the room. Marissa stood up abruptly, face flushed, eyes glossy not with tears, but with something worse, shame. She left without a word. Later that night, my father approached me while Noah slept beside me on the couch. You were right, he said. I failed both of you. I didn't argue. I didn't comfort him. I simply nodded. Because revenge wasn't about watching her suffer. It was about reclaiming my voice, about showing my son that cruelty doesn't get the last word. Accountability does. As I kissed Noah's forehead, I felt something finally settle inside me. They laughed that day, but I taught them something they would never forget.